like to welcome to the program Certified Financial Planner Practitioner, Michelle Bononcontri. As a Certified Divorce Financial Analyst, Michelle specializes in divorce planning. Her company is aptly named Being Mindful in Divorce and is located in Phoenix, Arizona. Welcome, Michelle.
Hi, David. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you on. So you're focusing on divorce. This affects, obviously, a very large percentage of the population. And there's a lot of financial aspects to it, of course, when somebody goes through a divorce. I would like to ask you what are some of the top mistakes, or maybe say a more positive thing. What are the things people really need to make sure they do in a divorce? Some must-dos that they need to take care of.
Okay. I think the first one is really engaging in self-care. Nobody really knows the toll that a divorce really takes on you physically and emotionally. So the sooner you really can have a plan in place, whether it's a support team with friends and family, maybe you're doing yoga, meditation, journaling, those types of things, it could be really helpful. If you're not taking care of yourself, health concerns could arise. I think also planning is really important. You want to know ahead of time what you don't know, so you want to gather those documents. You want to become educated around the property laws in your state. Are you an equitable distribution state? Are you a community property state? What's separate versus marital property, where you live impacts all those things. And I think kind of going back to the self-care, create a vision for your divorce. Who do you really need to be during the process so you can kind of self-check on the decisions that you're making around your family.
That's a lot.
It is a lot.
That's a lot to keep in play and keep track of and live your life and go through this process.
Yeah. I think the last one is to really be open to working with your partner whenever possible. And many times in the process, you'll have an attorney or an advisor that would tell you, no, I'm handling everything. The communication is only through our offices. And I think that can really thwart the process. And it could create much more anxiety, time, and expense, where there doesn't have to be that.
Okay. So how do you, there's a lot there to unpack. How do you balance between listening to advisors, be it your attorney or financial advisor or your certified divorce financial analyst? How do you balance that with having some of that communication with the soon-to-be ex-spouse?
Well, I think if there is domestic violence involved, it's kind of like all bets are off at that point.
That's different.
You know, I think having a self-check, if you have that vision that you can kind of say to yourself, am I acting in alignment with someone who wants to be kind and loving and support my family? I think also when you're working with a CDFA, for me, it's a lot about the data. So I think that when people see the data, it makes it much easier for them to make decisions, and it helps to take that emotion out of it. So that helps from that point of view. As far as the issue with the attorney, I think it's about your gut. Like, you have to trust it. So if this is someone that you can't talk to freely, or you feel that they're having you do something that's out of alignment with what's right for your family, you need to trust that and have a conversation. Maybe it's time to get a different attorney.
Okay. Because you're not married to them.
No, and it's your divorce.
Too.
Well, not for nothing. Were they there when you said I do? Right. So as the advocate for your own divorce, you have to be the one to speak up, because it's not the judge, it's not the family court system, and it's not the attorney that really has your back. It really has to be you.
You've said it very well, Michelle. You laid out a couple different must-dos, but the one I hear really jump off the table here is you've got to listen to your own place of where things are and what's important.
And I think the self-care helps you do that. Especially if you've been thinking of divorce for a while and you've been stressed. And sometimes there might be emotional abuse or financial abuse, or you might have just forgot who you were, right? Because you were taking care of your children, you were being the mom or the dad, you were the one that went to work every day. So you need to get back into touch with what's important to me. What are my values? And a lot of times people confuse positions with priorities. So, and there's a subtle difference. So if I want my children to feel loved and safe, that's different than my children must live in this house. Right. So if I can identify the priorities of loving and safe, then I'm going to have more open conversations with my attorney, with my spouse, and things can go smoother.
Good, and don't put yourself at a disadvantage emotionally. Or be impaired by your emotions.
And it's it. A lot of people get wrapped up in that, even just keeping the house. They have to have the house. They think it's a security blanket. but maybe you can't afford the house. And if you need to move now 2 or 3 years later, I think that's a little bit more devastating to the children versus the sale of the house and moving to a new place kind of coincides with that next phase of our life.
Exactly, exactly. Well put. So give us a success story when people actually do these must-dos and get them right and listen to you and to their advisors to look on this path and be very careful about what they're doing.
I worked with a couple, and I have to say they were almost like the poster children for divorce, if there was such a thing, for amicable divorce. They had been married close to 30 years, and they were both willing to take responsibility for where in their marriage there was this creation of a situation that created a deviation. And they were willing to look to the future rather than being stuck in the past and regret and blaming. They had all their documents in order. They were open to working with other professionals, so we brought in an appraiser. There was a valuation of some annuities that they owned to make sure that it made sense to even keep those. And for one spouse, it didn't make sense. And just that, keeping that communication open. And in the whole process, which I was totally, I didn't expect, which I thought was awesome, the husband was willing to equalize their incomes for 10 years.
Wow.
Because there was a pretty big disparity there. And although they didn't have younger children, he was willing to do that. It made her feel safer. And they actually decided to continue as business partners after the fact because they had a business where they bought and sold properties together. And they felt they could still continue the relationship afterwards.
I think you can call that amicable.
Yeah,
wow.
It was awesome.
Okay, just one thing I want to make sure we get to is give us one of the biggest, we'll do one, biggest mistake or a must-don't in divorce.
I would say unrealistic expectations. Many people just think they're going to get what they're not going to get. So they don't know the law, and they're trying to say this is fair versus the law. But part of that process, too, is I find sometimes people fixate on short-term results rather than the long-term picture, and then they don't get appraisals, and they don't get the valuations, and then they don't really get the settlement that they needed to get.
They just want to get out.
Yes.
And give me what I can get and move on. I need to take care of myself. I need out of this. I need to be done. Get what I can get and move on without thinking through all those. In other words, not willing to stay in the process longer to get really what needs to be their outcome.
And sometimes the self-care is a big part in that. They're feeling worn down, and and if they're not amicable, the other person is using time on their side, and it's usually the less moneyed spouse that's getting worn down and just wants to get out.
That's pretty common.
I think so.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
So go into it, eyes open, be patient. I guess patience is probably one of the biggest parts. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Very good. Michelle, Bononcontri, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
If you would like more information about the topics and our guests featured in this series, please visit our website at PlanStrongerTV.com. Also, if you have a question you would like David to answer, please send it to questions@PlanStrongerTV.com.